The Secrets of Middle-earth is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth, where we discuss the hidden themes and deeper layers found in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, whether in his writings or in any of the media derived from them, or in today's case, about the man himself. I'm Jeff Haecker, and joining me today in the SOME Society are Thomas Salerno. Hey, Thomas.
Hello there, Pat. I just called you Pat, right when we were saying that Pat is not among us tonight. Hello, Jeff. I messed it up already.
And it's not just me and Thomas. We are welcoming tonight Rob Leonardi. Hey, Rob.
Hello.
All right, and be sure to follow The Secrets of Middle-earth in Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or any podcast directory or app. And you can find us on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or on X, where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And don't forget that you can get your own official Secrets of Middle-earth merch, including our awesome t-shirt, at sqpn.com/merch. It's a great way for you to support the show and show your love for Tolkien and his wonderful world of Middle-earth. All right, and so before we get into tonight's discussion, since Rob is a new panelist who's joining us, I thought we should learn his origin story. So what is your Tolkien origin story, Rob?
Yeah, so for me, it kind of started all the way back with the first movie of Fellowship with the Ring. My brother kind of snuck me into the theater because I was not 13 yet. And I don't remember watching the movie. I think I might have fallen asleep because I was not yet 13. But I remember going to the movie theaters and watching that. And then the only one, I watched the movies. I think we bought them and I watched them on DVD. And then I watched an Unexpected Journey in the theaters. I'm like, wait a minute. I've seen parts of this before because they redo the Gollum in the caves a little bit. And it was kind of not really on my radar until I started getting into my faith, actually. At the time, it was called Lighthouse Catholic Media, but now it's owned by Augusta Institute. They have a CD by Joseph Pierce called Understanding the Lord of the Rings as a Catholic Book. And so I was listening to that, and I'm like, holy crap, like, this is awesome. I didn't realize how in-depth this is and how wonderful this whole realm is. And so I started diving into that a little bit and really started going off from there. Now, I'm somebody with aphantasia, so I can't imagine things. And so the books, for me, I could not do the books until COVID, and I had nothing to do. So I read the books, and ever since then, just been like, oh, wow, these books are better than the movies. And, it was just awesome. And there's no relationships between dwarves and elves in ways like in The Hobbit, which is awesome. And like, I started just diving into getting the Silmarillion. Actually, my wife got me a first American edition of the Silmarillion, which is really awesome.
With the black cover?
It's a green cover, actually.
Oh, it's a green cover. Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's really cool. I think that was one of our anniversary gifts that she got me. But like, I totally nerded it up. Where like the back of my van, it says "Little Hobbits on board." There's a book called Goodnight Hobbiton I got for my kids. My shower curtain is Lord of the Rings. Like, totally nerded it up. And then I ended up getting a job that's like 40 minutes away. So I started listening to Andy Serkis on the podcasts and listening to all the Lord of the Rings stuff. I'm currently in the middle of Tales from the Perilous Realm.
Ooh, yes.
But which is awesome. But like, I started listening to this podcast, because of this podcast, I got the letters from Father Christmas and read those to my kids this past Advent. And like, diving into the Rings of Power and everything like that has just been awesome. And it's just been really great diving into this lore. And especially then with all of that, also, I started doing Middle Earth battle strategy games with my best friends. And so we're taking, the Wraith and Aragorn and little miniature figures and battling each other out and really nerding it up. So you got another nerd on the panel for you here.
Nice.
And yeah, thank you for getting the contractual reference in and out of the way. So
I figure I probably should get paid for the first time I'm on.
There you go. Checks in the mail. So all right. And then we didn't really have any news that's really related to anything upcoming. I don't believe. I believe Comic-Con is coming up soon. By the time you're listening to this, Comic-Con will have passed, so there could have been something announced. But as far as I know, there hasn't been any significant news related to Rings of Power or anything else. But there was an interesting bit of news that I think I'll let our resident paleontology expert mention. So go ahead, Thomas, with this bit of news.
Yeah, so this is interesting. A new extinct species of lizard that was described from fossils has been named after the orc Bolg, son of Azog, who you may remember from both the Hobbit films and also in the book, The Hobbit. The article here does this thing that Popular Science articles does where they say new dinosaur named after a Tolkien character. Because, of course, to them, anything that's extinct and scaly is a dinosaur. And that's a big pet peeve of mine. But in fact, this new species that is called Bolg amandel. And that's interesting because the species name, because all new species are given two scientific name, so we can distinguish them by genus and species. The genus is Bolg, so after the orc, and the species name is amandel, which is Elvish for hill head or like mound head, because of the hilly region where the fossils were discovered. I also discovered a little bit of a Wikipedia summary of what they have of the species. It's all very fragmentary, mostly vertebrae and some little bits and pieces here and there. That's par for the course in paleontology. They can, if you have enough diagnostic criteria, you can assign a new species name to very fragmentary material. And they actually did a study which showed that this particular lizard, this is not enormous or anything. It's kind of like a about the size probably of a Gila monster, if you know those lizards from the Southwest with those kind of beady, lumpy scales. Well, this creature is actually related to modern-day Gila monsters, which is interesting, and got me thinking of the 50s black and white B movie, The Giant Gila Monster, where Gila Monster goes around messing up toy cars and model buildings and eating people. But it's cool, and this is not the first time that an extinct species or a living species has been named after Tolkien characters. I believe there's actually a present-day lizard that's named Smaug, which is pretty cool. But it's nice to see another Tolkien-named extinct creature join the fossil family. I've always said if I got to name like a new ceratopsian, like one of the horned dinosaurs, I would name it Balrog Morgothai, or Balrog of Morgoth. But that will probably never happen. I'll never get the chance to do that. But anyway, I just got to geek out about extinct stuff for about 5 minutes, so I'm done.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess that is it for the news. So like I said, by the time this is aired, there might have been an announcement of The Hunt for Gollum being split into 10 movies. We don't really know. So, all right. So today we are discussing the 2019 Tolkien biopic, Tolkien. And just a note, it is not available for free included with any streaming that I could find, but it can be rented in a variety of places, including your local library or video on demand, or I watched it on YouTube TV. So there's a variety of places you can watch it. It's just nothing included with, like, you have to have some kind of premium subscription or something to watch it on streaming. So,
well, I watched it for free on Amazon Prime, but that's only because I had a few Amazon credits left over for electronic purchases that I could use. So that was nice.
Yeah, I watched it. Actually, I went to my library and got it. They have a whole co-op with my library. Has different libraries that it can pull from. So it's actually like the library like 3 towns over, and then it just shipped it to mine for free. So
that's neat.
Maybe it's a Michigan thing. I don't know.
All right. So yeah, like I said, it there's a variety of places you can get it, but unfortunately it's not currently included with anything streaming for free. So all right. So I'll get the plot summary first, and then as usual do the plot summary, then impressions and discussions. So in the film, Lieutenant J.R.R. Tolkien in the Battle of the Somme lies sick with trench fever and decides to start looking for his friend Geoffrey. While sick, he flashes back to his childhood when he, his mother, and brother relocate to Birmingham. His education and guardianship are entrusted to Father Francis Xavier Morgan. When his mother dies, he and his brother live with the local well-to-do woman who is also looking after young Edith Bratt, and they become friends. At school, Tolkien becomes friends with the headmaster's son, Robert, and they, along with Christopher, Wiseman, and Geoffrey, form the Tea Club and Barovian Society, or TCBS, a brotherhood pledged to loyalty to one another with the purpose to change the world through the power of art, but also known for drinking tea, and later other things, exchanging ideas and causing mischief. As time passes, Tolkien and Edith's relationship deepens, and it begins affecting his grades, and he fails his first entrance exam into Oxford. At that point, Father Francis forbids him from seeing her until he is 21. He agrees, but Edith ends the relationship. He attends Oxford, but misses Edith, and one night, the TCBS meets, gets drunk, and are arrested. As a result, Tolkien is informed his scholarship will not be renewed. Then he receives a letter that Edith is engaged to another man, and Tolkien stumbles into the professor's courtyard at night, drunk, shouting one of his made-up languages. This event sparked an acquaintance with Professor Joseph Wright, a philologist at Oxford, and he joins the department with a new scholarship. World War I breaks out, and he and his friends enlist and share a final TCBS toast. He finds Edith before shipping out, and they declare their love for one another. Returning to the Somme, Tolkien is searching for Geoffrey and goes into no man's land looking for him, even hearing Geoffrey calling out his name, but ultimately falls unconscious. He wakes up in the hospital with Edith, but learns Robert and Geoffrey were killed in the war. And then a few years later, Professor Tolkien and Edith are married with kids, but their marriage is strained over his trouble with writing. Edith pushes him to decide what he wants to get out of writing or abandon it. He meets with Geoffrey's mother and gets her permission to write a foreword in a book publishing his poetry. And then finally, on a walk with his family and brother, he begins to tell a story about quests, dragons, magic, little people, and fellowship. And the film ends with him writing, "In a hole in the ground lived a hobbit." All right, so kind of a brief summary of a 2-hour movie, but what were y'all's impressions of the movie? Rob, I'll go with you first.
I really liked it. I'm really not a person that likes a lot of like biopic films. I'm not the first person to go and watch like films about war, and I like my fantasy stuff, but this one was actually really cool, just seeing kind of like the backstory of Tolkien and where he was able to develop his legendarium from.
Yeah. All right. And what about you, Thomas?
I really enjoyed it. I thought in particular the acting was very strong from pretty much all the actors. I believe it's Nicholas Hoult who plays Tolkien, if I'm right. He did very good. Just all the little nuances of like, you could read even when he wasn't speaking, like what he was feeling. So I felt the acting was very strong. I felt that it, for a kind of Cliff Notes of Tolkien's life, it's very effective in communicating, to the audience, how he sort of, as like what Rob was saying, developed his sort of fantasy ideas over time, and his passion for languages and you know his original sort of fellowship of friends who, you know, may have, you know, inspired the fellowship later. I mean, I don't think it's it probably, the impression probably comes across perhaps more to people who've seen the movies, because like the TCBS is 4 friends and it makes you immediately think of the 4 hobbits from the movie. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I felt the pacing was good. I was never bored. Overall, really good film. I have nitpicks with it. Things that they left out and I know they're condensing stuff into a less than 2-hour movie, but there's some things where it's like, that didn't really happen like that. Or, you know, there's context missing here that I felt are things they could have explored more. But they really wanted to focus, I think, on the TCBS and also his relationship with Edith. And those are probably some of the strongest parts of the movie. And it was also cool to see some other actors I recognized. I don't know his name, but the actor who plays Jeffrey, I saw him recently in Masters of the Air. He plays a navigator on a B-17 who eventually becomes a major. And I really liked it. Crosby was the name of the character. But yeah, so it was also good to see some faces I recognize.
Overall, I also really enjoyed it. It was interesting watching this with Nicholas Hoult because the Superman movie just came out. He's
just watched it after Superman.
So yeah.
Oh wait, who is he in Superman? I haven't seen it yet.
He's Lex Luthor.
Is he seriously Lex Luthor? Yeah. I didn't recognize him in the trailers. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's funny hearing him go from because Nicholas Hoult is British, so it's funny hearing him do Lex Luthor as a bad guy and then do Nicholas Hoult, as a British, or do Tolkien as a British man. So
wow.
Yeah, overall, I also really enjoyed it. I'm not an expert in Tolkien's biography or anything, so I was Wikipediaing stuff as I was watching just to see, like, did it happen like that? Or, I didn't go too in depth just because I was trying to watch the movie, but I was just kind of curious on what they were pulling from. I didn't know if the TCBS was real, and it is, but yeah, overall it was definitely really, I thought it good, enjoyable. And I mean, of course, like you said, there are nits to pick, and there are some big parts of Tolkien that they really cut out that we'll get into, or at least really important parts of his life that they didn't really touch on. So
yeah, I was almost waiting for like an announcement for like Tolkien 2, where they talk about the Inklings, which is his literary group.
Yes.
Once he's an adult with C.S. Lewis, and he can, go off on the adventures that he did with C.S. Lewis and the crazy things that they did.
Yeah, it almost does feel like a part 1, that ending, doesn't it? Because it's like, you almost expect there to be a Marvel-esque end credit scene where C.S. Lewis walks in. I'm here to talk to you about the Inklings Initiative. Like
I'm putting a team together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like y'all said, it's definitely like really is more of the first part of his life. I was more thinking of they barely touched on his Catholic faith so we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But yeah, just some, to kind of start chatting here. What did y'all think of the love of language and storytelling of Tolkien's love of language and storytelling? Like, how did y'all feel that was portrayed in this movie?
I really loved the beginning of it with his mom, like, all right, it's time. And then she goes into the story, telling the story of Sigurd. And she's like making this a dramatic telling of it. And he's sitting there just taking this all in and enjoying it. And he's then, one of the deleted scenes actually, because with the DVD you have deleted scenes. He actually pulls out when he's at school a Norse written version of Sigurd, And before the TCBS gets formed, that they weren't exactly friends, and they were kind of bullying him about, oh, you're an Anglo-Saxon, like you can read Norse and all this stuff. But I think it was just really beautiful being able to have him to get that from his mother, and we see that he grew up with this love that his mother instilled into him, and grew it into a passion that he created multiple languages with.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the real through lines of the movie, you know, and I feel they handled it well, especially because, like, the inventing of languages, and I think by Tolkien's own admission in real life and in the film, is kind of a peculiar hobby that, you know, other people just don't understand. Well, you know, why are you so in love with words that way? You invented a language? What do you mean? I mean, nowadays in like geek circles, that's like just taken as like, oh, you know, like, of course you invented a language. But, you know, in the kind of circles he's moving in, you know, at Oxford and everything, that must have just seemed very odd. So, you know, like, I like how they show his struggles with trying to communicate to people what he means. I think my favorite part was where you kind of get to see how his mind works with words when him and Edith are at that restaurant and they're talking about a word that sounds like cellar door. And he's trying to convince her that, no, I can actually make this into like a beautiful concept, even though it sounds like something mundane, right? And she challenges him to make up a story on the spot about this cellar door thing, whatever it might be. And you see the way his mind works, flitting from one concept to another, you know, like, you know, maybe it's a princess, maybe, no, it's a place. No, it's a tree, you know, and the way, and that, I've been reading his, or rather his son Christopher's collected volumes, The History of Middle-earth. And you can tell from his earlier drafts, especially of the Silmarillion, that's kind of his creative process. His creative process is figuring this stuff out. Middle-earth didn't jump out from his mind fully formed like Athena from the mind of Zeus. He was figuring this out. Sometimes names jump between like different people in different versions of the Silmarillion, or a place's name changes over and over again. So it's like it's almost like he's not making up these names. He's discovering who the names belong to. And I felt that scene with him and Edith communicated his style of creativity amazingly well.
Yeah, I like that scene a lot too. And it was almost like, I think they do it a couple times in the movie. That first one about Stellar was, of course, like the most in depth, but they do it I want to say they do it another time or two in the movie, and it's almost like you can imagine that as a game that they're playing like over and over again. It's like, you know, like any couple will have those kind of games and those kind of things of like, oh, you know, give me one, and he'll, like, you know, she'll say a word and he'll make up a story about it. So
and my favorite part was, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure they did it at least once more. But y'all could correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I think she definitely pushed him to do more with his writing. Mm-hmm. But I think it was one of the things that I was going to say was they have a fight, you know, as every couple does. And in his apology, he wrote he's giving her an invitation to go see Wagner, and he goes, "This is, you know, Drachenfutter. It's an old German word that doesn't translate well. It means a gift offered fearfully in the wake of an argument, but it literally means dragon food." And she goes, "Yeah, so I'm a dragon."
Yeah, that was good. I liked that. Yeah,
it's like but that whole idea of he's able to find these words because of his great intellect and bring them into modern day stuff, and trying to incorporate that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I like that scene where he's trying to bring her into the and or he's giving her the ticket, and he says dragonfooter, and she's almost like playing, when you can tell she accepts the apology and accepts the gift when she kind of gives him back. So I'm playing when she playfully says back, oh, I'm a dragon whatever now. So yeah, I really like that scene, and yeah, seeing his kind of development in the movie of the love of languages. And I think it kind of the best impression of that is in the scene where he's yelling in his made up languages after he's been drinking because he got the letter from Edith saying she's marrying someone else. And he's just yelling and, making in the professor's like courtyard area. So,
well, and I don't know if you caught, but he actually says, when he falls down, he says, hail, because, oh my goodness, give me a second here. I'm sorry.
Like the catchphrase that TCBS had, the Hailheim or whatever.
No. It was, it's in my notes. I'm blanking on the dude's name. The guy that flies across the sky with the Cimmerel.
Oh, Arundel.
Yeah, he says a version, like an early version of that name.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
because,
I don't know.
Probably because an early version of that name is in an Anglo-Saxon poem.
Okay.
That's where he got that sound from. He changed the way it's spelled and completely changed the meaning of the word. But
Okay.
he knew that word from Anglo-Saxon. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. He does say that. Yeah. Because he's looking up at the night sky, and of course, Arundel being one of the bright stars in Middle Earth. Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
I mean, even from the very beginning, you see his intellect, where, he, I think it was Robbie stole his book from him when he first got to school, and he was called on to continue on reciting, or, continue on reading on, they were doing Chaucer, right?
Yeah.
The Canterbury Tales, and he stands up and just starts reciting it from memory. like I was like, oh my goodness, that's awesome, that's great, that's awesome. And then
in Middle English, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, then they have to go do a rugby fight and beat each other up as boys have to do to become friends. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the TCBS, I think, a little bit later, because we're kind of just talking on some of the themes now. But throughout the whole movie, I really enjoyed his, his love of language and storytelling developing. And of course, like, it ends, like we said, where he is on the walk with his family and he starts telling the story. And I thought they were going to like dramatize it. He's going to say that he was going to say, in a hole in the ground lived a hobbit, and he was just going to like tell the story like that. But I'm kind of glad they had it where he wrote it at the very end, like the last,
which he did. He the way they show him doing it, where he's grading papers, and he just writes the opening line of The Hobbit on a blank page that was inserted in this paper he was grading. That really happened.
Yeah, because wasn't it something that he saw the word Hobbit in a student's paper or something?
No, he didn't see it in the paper. He came up with the word at that moment. He was just bored. The paper he was reading wasn't good, and so he just got bored, and the word just came to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know when I'm bored at work, I don't immediately come up with, things that will become legendary tales. So, that was, the through line throughout the movie was really good. And it was interesting how it kind of sprang to life a couple times when he was in the Somme, or at the Battle of the Somme, and he saw a flamethrower and it like translated into a dragon, because he was, of course, like he was feverish, so he was kind of out of it, but he saw that dragon, and I think there were a couple of other things he saw there, which we can
Balrog maybe
on. Yeah, that was they did dramatize that a little bit, where they had Lord Sauron eventually at the very end show up and all the Nazgul show up, but I think that's that's more exaggerated and maybe even fabricated with.
Yeah. I don't even know if he really went to look for Jeffrey in the way it's shown. I feel like that's dramatized. Although if an audience member corrects me on that, that's fine. But it's like I almost feel like that didn't happen. I know I remember reading he was definitely anxious to know where Jeffrey was, but I don't know if he really went searching across no man's land for him.
Yeah, but, and again, one of the deleted scenes, he's having a conversation with Robbie, actually, and Robbie's doing this really interesting telling of how it's beautiful, that the sounds of the bullets are beautiful if it wasn't so horrifying, and kind of doing this poetry stuff with him. And he actually goes, look at these people. It's interesting. They come in as men and they leave as an army of the dead.
Wow.
And then it cuts to a scene of Chris playing music, because he was the musician of the group. And it's a like a MacGyvered oboe, I think it is, or one of the I'm going to get hate for this, but one of the musical instruments with strings. That's not a guitar.
Violin.
No, it was the big one.
Cello, probably.
Okay, yeah, and but then it cuts back and Robbie's not there. He was just imagining Robbie, talking to Robbie at that time, and Robbie was one of the ones that died in battle. And but Chris was the one that survived with him, but Chris had other types of battle scars, if you will.
Yeah. So, definitely portrayed. Which we can talk about the war part of it now. It definitely portrayed that in a pretty. I mean, any wars is horrific, but World War I was, in a special way, very horrific.
The first industrial scale war done with modern machines and, but still with 19th century human wave tactics. So, there's an interesting quote. If you've ever looked at Tolkien's preface to the second edition of The Lord of the Rings, it's pretty much in any version you buy today. He mentions that by 1918, all but one of my close friends was dead.
Yeah.
And that tells you something about that. What this, he was, clearly, like so many people in the Somme and in a lot of the battles in World War I, just traumatized by the, imagine that, like all of your best friends except for one are dead within the space of 4 years, and there was nothing you could do about it. That's always stuck with me as I can't possibly imagine that.
Yeah. And
a lot of, I'm sorry, I was just want to say, a lot of great fantasy and children's authors came out of this generation. There was him, there was C.S. Lewis, there was A.A. Milne, the creator of Winnie the Pooh. We're all part of this same generation who saw awful stuff and could only respond to it by creating beautiful things, almost as if to put offset. Some good in the, that's it, offset, all the evil that they've seen. Yeah.
Or at least, maybe that was their way of getting through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like just getting into their happy place, right?
Yeah.
Again, as someone with aphantasia, I can't do that, but I understand it's possible.
Yeah. Another thing that struck me was seeing, and I know this happened, seeing when England declares war on Germany, how ecstatically enthusiastic all the young men were. everybody on the university quad starts throwing their papers in the air and high-fiving one another. Well, not high-fiving, but embracing one another, and like everyone's, embracing this idea of like, we get to do our bit. We get to go to war. It'll be an adventure. And then they have no clue what's coming, because this is not gentleman's war anymore. This is, industrial meat grinder.
Yeah. Yeah. And I liked how they had the final TCBS toast, and it was kind of, because at least in the movie, that's the last time they're all together, and they have their toast, saying we'll toast across Europe, like imagining that, oh, we're going to have these, maybe not all of them were like hopeful for glory, but maybe some of them were, and we're thinking, oh, we'll have lots of times when we're conquering Germany and conquering, freeing people, we'll toast and all over the place. And of course they didn't, because of just how the war happened, that it was, you had no man's land where, not much progress is made throughout the entire war. So,
one tiny little bit about that scene. Who is it? Robbie comes in with the mustache.
Oh yeah.
What's funny is that in real life, Tolkien himself grew a mustache when he was at the front.
Okay.
But they don't show that, I think, as to not confuse the audience. But if you look at photographs of him from this period, you'll see he grew a mustache, which he shaves off later when he comes home.
I tried looking to find if that photo was real somewhere, and I could not find the photo of them before they went off to war together.
Oh, the photo they show in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I was really hoping that was going to be a real photo. That I was like, oh, this would be really cool.
If it exists anywhere, it's probably in the book Tolkien and the Great War, but I don't have a copy with me, so yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then we had one other note. I think this is probably you, Rob, if you wanted to talk about this, because we can kind of talk about the war and then move on to the other things. But you had some notes in here about his soldier, his Batman Sam. In this.
Oh yeah. So in the movie, they have this guy helping him out that he just calls him Sam in the movie, right? And it's the guy that makes sure that he stays alive, helps to go find Jeff's cavalry, and really helping him out. And you can see that the writers of this movie were trying to place the emphasis of, this is Samwise. This is Tolkien's own Sam. And I think that was kind of really cool. I mean, for them to do it that way. Tolkien himself in one of his letters wrote, "My Samwise is indeed a reflection of the English soldier, of the privates and Batman I knew in the 1914 war, and recognized as so far superior to myself."
Yeah, I've read that letter. Yeah.
And so
I've always found that fascinating.
Yeah, it was cool just to see that, because having trench fever, he's going to be needed to have these people take care of him, right? And very much of that, almost that Frodo journey of, I'm in the hell, and someone's going to need to carry me.
It was actually a part of the whole Batman system was essentially part of the English class system. If you were an officer, you had they were called soldier servants or Batmen, who would follow you around, attend to your needs, get you coffee, make sure you stayed in bed if you were sick, so it was, and Tolkien does not come from a high class background, but it didn't matter. If you were an officer, you were assigned this servant person. I guess today we might call it an aide de camp, as someone who just kind of follows you around and tends to your needs. But yeah, I liked that a lot. I knew of that letter, so when this character appeared, I'm like, okay, they're referencing the fact that he kind of created Samwise as an amalgam of different non-coms and privates that he knew during the war. So I did like that as an inclusion in the movie.
Yeah. So unless you'll have anything kind of else to say specifically about the kind of the war, just because that gets that's such a small. It's really the frame narrative of the movie, and like it's really the beginning and the end.
It kind of reminded me of 1917 because it's in that movie because it's about a guy searching for somebody.
Oh yeah,
whose unit is going to go off into no man's land and get butchered, and it's the same kind of story that's in the movie 1917, just intercut with these flashbacks of him creating languages and going to Oxford.
Oh, and I remember this. That made me remember the second kind of storytelling game was the name of the ship he's going on when he ships out.
Right.
Yeah, I forget what the name of the ship was, but he was
Chaos.
I
think it was.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he and Edith was like, oh, it sounds like something from one of your stories, and he then goes and tells the whole story. So,
but I don't know if you noticed, that story was very much of a story of him and her trying to, like, you should forgive yourself and forgive. And I think that was kind of her way of really showing that, hey, I'm still open to this relationship, even though she was engaged to somebody else. And ultimately, of course, they run back to each other and have the kiss up before the departing of the ship.
Yeah, we can come. I don't know if we want to end with their relationship. I thought maybe next we can move into the TCBS, because that's a big part of the movie. Like, I thought it was going to really be focused on kind of his relationship with Edith, and it is, but it's kind of the both sides, like his kind of best friends and his relationship with Edith. So, and as we were saying, the TCBS was a real group that they, like when you're a kid, you come up with a club name, or you call yourself something. Like, it's very common, I feel like, among kids. So, but what did y'all think of the? Do
you remember what it stands for?
Movie. In the movie, it's Tea Company and Barovian Society, or Tea. I forget what the T was.
Club
the Tea Club and Barovian Society, because they were taking to the Barrows, was the tea place that they were going to.
Yeah,
because that's where they would have their meetings, right?
Yeah.
Annoying all the other people who are just trying to drink their tea quietly, like, such an English thing also.
Yeah.
By the way.
No, but it I think the one thing that throughout the movie was that call of Helheim.
Right.
That was something that even he even did it to himself, like when he was talking to Professor Wright, like, oh, Helheim, and like I'm going to go talk to you.
For it.
And like they called each other on that at certain points to go do something stupid, crazy, or just brave, really. Like, go do it.
And
breaking into the bus really happened, apparently.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. So, jumping into that, I want to say there was an anecdote where he and his friends, like, not only broke into a bus, but like took it over and started driving it around.
Like, took a joyride. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the first Helheim that they give is they're trying to, I forget which of them it was, but they were trying to get one of them to go and like propose to their waitress,
to the waitress,
or whatever.
Yeah. They told Robbie to go propose to the waitress, and they got kicked out of Barrows.
So awkward.
Yeah. But then they use it again later when they're going to Robert's house, because as we said, Robert's the son of the headmaster, who's a very stern, very strict man. Doesn't really seem like a lot of love there, which is probably common for the era. Just that you don't show love as it really.
And it's like a class thing too,
Yeah. But he invited the group over because his dad was out of town, but his dad came back and he says they have to go home, and they give him, and he didn't want to show him the painting that he had because Robert wants to be a painter. Everyone has kind of their, I don't know how accurate that is, but everyone kind of has their artistic kind of thing. Like, Robert's a painter, Jeffrey's a poet, Christopher's a musician, and Tolkien, he's kind of a poet in this, because of course he was in the I don't know if it's the English department initially at Oxford before he switched to the
classics,
the greats, like the ancient, the Greek greats, yeah.
But they give him the help. They give Robert the Helheim to get him the courage to let them stay. So
yeah, stand up to his dad.
And I think the way that they portrayed that was very nice. Like he did it wittingly. Like, Dad, this would be ungentlemanly of me. And his dad like froze, is like, wait, what? And like the way they did, the way like you could see, it grew from go propose crazily to this waitress to go do like witty things.
Yeah. I believe my favorite Hellheimer moment was when Tolkien does it to himself to go and keep talking to Professor Wright. Because like what happens is like, he's confronted with Professor Wright and actually reading one of his books and doesn't recognize the guy and is embarrassed, and then realizes the only way to save his Oxford career, because he's essentially going to get kicked out, his scholarship's going to be revoked, is to transfer to the philology department. And he's trying to, buck up the courage to go and talk to him again. But it leads to my favorite line in the movie, because, and I wrote the whole thing down because it's hilarious. Because Professor Wright tries to blow him off in Anglo-Saxon. He basically says like, leave me alone to quietly, work on my stuff. And Tolkien says, no, if I left you alone to work in peace, then I wouldn't get the privilege of learning from you, and that would defeat the purpose of this entire, frankly, quite terrifying interlude. Because that sounded like a very Tolkien thing to say. That, like, I could almost see one of the hobbits saying that, like, it was also very British, but it was...
Yeah.
I love that. I actually rewound that part and listened to it again because it was so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they did some really awesome things together. I think those are a great group of kids. And then one of the things it kind of struck in the heart a little bit, because when Edith was brought into the club a little bit, and before Tolkien took her out, you hear Robbie say, it shouldn't take 6 hours to tell a story about a magical ring.
They're referring to Wagner, obviously, but also the meta commentary on Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, but overall, I really enjoyed seeing their kind of friendship develop, because initially it starts out that Tolkien's kind of getting bullied by Robert, and then they have their scuffle in the rugby game, and then they're sent up to the headmaster's office, and Robert says, he doesn't care what you have to say, you're here to listen, and shut up and listen and take your punishment or whatever. And they basically assign them that they have to do everything together for I think it's for the year or the term or something, as kind of a punishment to get along. And at this point we don't know yet that Robert's the son of the headmaster. We find that out a little bit later. And they're kind of starting out still as enemies, but then I think it's Jeffrey comes over and tells Tolkien, he's not gracious enough to apologize, but he would like you to join us for tea, or he says something along those lines. So
yeah.
But yeah, I liked how that kind of developed from that friend to enemy kind of relationship a little bit. It was almost very similar to like the Gimli Legolas relationship. And I don't know, again, I'm not a Tolkien biographer. I don't know how accurate that, that anecdote is. If y'all know, y'all can speak to that. But I thought it was an effective way, at least, to dramatize like, enemies to friends. And then you quickly get into their friendship throughout the movie. But yeah, unless y'all had anything else on the TCBS specifically.
I just, the last thing for me was just the way that Tolkien always stood up for these guys. Like he stood up to the headmaster before he even was friends. It was like, it was on me. And then with the whole drunk bus incident, he went up to Mrs. Smith, Jeffrey's mother, and it was like, I'm completely responsible. You know, I'm being sent down. Don't worry, I won't be an influence on him anymore. Like, he's taking the punishments, essentially, trying to get all the blame onto himself so that other people aren't in trouble. And in the one deleted scene that I mentioned where he's in the library with the Norse text and they're kind of bullying him, he does that in that as well. Because the librarian's like, this is not a concert hall.
Yeah. Gotcha. Oh, and that reminds me. Did y'all catch who Jeffrey's mother was played by?
She was familiar, but I couldn't place it.
Rob, did you catch who she was?
No, I didn't.
Genevieve O'Reilly, who's Mon Mothma in Andor.
That's why she's so familiar.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But she looks different enough to Mon Mothma that you don't. At least I didn't recognize. Like, she was very familiar, and then it wasn't until the cast was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
yep,
what that is."
I can see that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we can kind of move on. Before I figure like Edith and their relationship is probably kind of a good way to end, but we can get our gripes out of the way on this part of the depiction or not of faith in this movie, because it was very minimal in this movie, but it's such a big part of Tolkien that it's. And of course, it's a secular Hollywood movie, or whatever company makes it. They're not going to really get into that, but
at least it's not Disney.
Yeah. Well, right off the bat, I noticed something that was off about his mother's death. If I'm remembering this correctly, she does not die in Birmingham. She dies in a cottage that they had more by like the coastal area, which was supposed to improve her health. I forget whether I think Tolkien was at her bedside when she died. So it's not like they portrayed it in the movie. They just come home one day and she's non-responsive. Like then they sort of skip over her whole illness. She had diabetes, essentially, which was difficult to treat back then, especially if you were poor. And, so she essentially died of diabetes. And the reason, and they definitely don't go into this, the reason they are in such dire financial circumstances is that the family of Tolkien's father, who had died previously, disowned them, the mother and the kids, when the mother converted to Catholicism. So that's why they were and that's why, they had to rely on the generosity of Father Francis. And so, but I thought it's interesting that they don't go into that, because like that, they're Catholics living in a majority Anglican country, and persecution of, like, even though it's not official anymore, is still kind of baked in. It was difficult for people like Tolkien to advance, even in places like Oxford, socially, because you're a papist, So they basically cut out the whole friction with Tolkien's with his father's family, and Tolkien like struggled with forgiving his relatives, because he essentially believed that they were responsible for his mother's death, because they knew she was ill and still cut them off financially. He did eventually forgive them, but that took a long time. And so that whole aspect of his personality in his life is just excised completely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
at least had Father Francis in it, and they didn't just say like have a guy in a suit named Francis is becoming his benefactor or something.
And in the beginning of the movies, I was like, Miles O'Brien from Star Trek is Father Francis. I'm like, okay. I'm down with that. That's cool.
Yeah. No, they like you were saying, they kind of skipped over the whole dad aspect, right? The fact that Tolkien was born in Africa,
Yeah.
And they mentioned that briefly, that, you know, they went from Africa and then came to England, but it was, like you're saying, just very interesting that they completely omitted the entire family part of the life, right?
And they omitted that the boys, Ronald and Hillary, lived with Father Francis and his Oratorian community for a while before going to live with the well-to-do woman.
Yep. And it was one of the deleted scenes was actually it was a sick call that he went on, and the boys were there, and probably the you know, Father Francis was getting viaticum to a dying man, looked like, you know, doing the whole last rites. And this shows Tolkien back there, you know, he's mouthing the prayers in Latin, just learning and embracing the Latin of the church.
That's cool. Wish that was in the movie.
Yeah, I was really sad that wasn't in the movie. It was, they said that it was actually, there was two scenes that balanced each other out, and it was that scene, and then there was another scene that they deleted in the trenches of war, that they deleted, that were kind of like, you know how they kept jumping from war scene to young scene, from war scene to young scene. It was one that they took out because of the other, and unfortunately that was a deep part of his faith that they just completely omitted. And then they totally made the priest out to be kind of an antagonist and a bad guy. No, you're not allowed to see her until you're 21. And
one thing he said in that argument, one thing which was completely factually inaccurate, one thing that Tolkien says to him, he's like, "You want me to live alone like you?" And I'm like, "No, Father Francis was a member of a religious order, the Oratorians of St. John Bosco. He did not live alone. They lived in community." I was like, This is an easy fact to get right, guys. I'm like,
Well, and
he says
alone.
He says, "You're a priest. He says, "You're a priest. You're jealous. You know nothing about love. How could you?" And it's like, that's a modern day thinking, like a Protestant thinking of what Catholicism is,
of what
and
priestly celibacy is.
Yeah. And even if you're like, and even if you're a parish priest and you're the only priest in your parish, you still have the community of the people around you. Yeah, you're not living in a house with them. You don't have, you know, a wife and kids. But you have the community around you that you serve, and, you know, and maybe it was a little bit more of a social divide back then, but yeah, even so, you're still around people all the time. So, I mean, they were very clearly, I mean, obviously they were going for the, you know, I don't want to be celibate like you or whatever, but, yeah, I mean, of course, because it's a, you know, I would love to see like a more true to life biopic with that kind of in there, but
it was interesting. I didn't get the feel that he was like a complete antagonist. I saw where he was like, clearly he's an antagonist in the sense that he's standing in the way of what Tolkien wants. But I could see where he was coming from when he was saying, like, you know, he's seeing Tolkien's grade slipping because of this relationship with a girl, and he's like, your mother sacrificed too much for you to blow this chance to get a free ride to Oxford.
Yeah.
So you're going to give up this relationship and put your nose to the grindstone and get those grades. It's like, and that's also like a common movie trope of like the parental figure who's like, no, you can't be in this relationship or friendship. Do good in school. So it's like, but it's like, yeah, so he's an antagonist figure, but I feel like even in the movie, which they exaggerate his intensity on this quite a bit, but I feel like the character still meant well. I think.
Yeah. I mean,
even at the end, he acknowledges, like, you know, you were right to pursue your feelings for her. She's, you know, because she stayed by his bedside when he was ill. And again, I don't know if they just made that up for the movie, but
no. I mean, I believe that was actually one of the accurate things. that she was kind of once he got back to England, right? That she was there for him, but it doesn't show her growth into, because she ended up converting to Catholicism herself, and it shows nothing of that faith and nothing of them growing together in faith as married couples do.
Right. Oh, and I should mention about the trench fever. He never fully recovered from that for the rest of his life. He had recurring bouts of chronic illness. You see it in his letters when he's writing to people and saying, I'm having that lung thing again. Or, it's like, I'm so tired. And it's like he had these recurring bouts of illness that were probably a direct result of his trench fever, because at one point he's so laid up that the military writes him off as like completely disabled, unable to serve at the front. And so it's almost like, in that sense, he's like Frodo, who never fully recovers from what he's been through.
Always has that wound with him.
Yeah, and one other thing on the Catholicism of it all is, I was just looking, the lady who owned the boarding house or whatever that Edith and Tolkien lived in, she was actually Catholic and was active in the parish. So they kind of left that out too, that they kind of just made her out to be like, oh, I guess I'll take these boys in, even though they're kind of, they don't have social class or whatever. Like, she was very kind of
more of a well-to-do person that's very nice, rather than, hey, this is an active Catholic thing to do.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess she also, I just pulled this up on Wikipedia because we were talking about it. And the lady, her name is Mrs. Faulkner, hosted musical like get-togethers where the oratory priest would attend and Edith would accompany the soloist. But anyway, so a little bit of tidbit there. I guess we can kind of move into, just to close out, kind of the talking about Edith and how their relationship was depicted. So what did y'all think of their kind of relationship? We've already kind of touched on a couple parts of it. There's a couple other scenes we hadn't. So what did y'all think of kind of their first meeting? Was Edith was playing piano in the home, and that, that's how they're kind of introduced for the first time. But what did y'all think of their relationship as shown in the movie?
I enjoyed the sort of back and forth that they had. I like that they're both very strong personalities, and so I lost my train of thought. But yeah, it's like I liked that we get to see a lot of what Edith is interested in as well, and her desires for the future, and how they both kind of bond over the fact that they're both orphans, I guess, kind of living in this irregular situation, and how, like, they both desire or hope for this kind of happy ending. Because I was going to mention this earlier, that kind of like Tolkien in this movie is the classic orphan boy who rises to greatness archetype, right? And Edith kind of recognizes that, because at one point when he tells her that, like, look, Father Francis has given me this ultimatum, and she's like, well, you get your happy ending. You get to escape this place and go to Oxford, and I'm just going to stay here and be trapped in this situation that I don't like. So you get to see that, it's not, she's not so much a prize to be won in this movie as a person with her own, desires. It's a give and take relationship, and it felt very real. It felt very, messy, which is like real life,
Yeah, I think that, there's a reason that they have Beren and Luthien engraved on their headstone.
Yes.
Like, not only was this a beautiful love story, but she really did bring him and push him and made him better, as a spouse should, right? Just, as a spouse, my job is to get my wife to heaven, and her job is to get me to heaven. And she, I think, did an awesome job doing what she needs to do even before they were married, of just pushing him. And, you know, it started off with that playful, just making fun of Salerno, but it really went into pushing him to do that, where she, you know, even at the end of the movie, like, what are you going to do with this writing? Either do something with it or give it up altogether. And that's really how he dove into writing down the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yeah, and one other scene we didn't, you know, because we initially see that he's going to introduce her to the TCBS and brings her to the tea place, but then quickly leaves because I guess he's getting embarrassed or getting, you know, flustered with. Yeah, because she's talking about music with Christopher, I believe is the musician.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's getting jealous and wants to cut that off because he's not the musician, even though he writes a million songs and but yeah, so, and that's what the whole apology thing with the Wagner tickets was. And they try to go, but he's trying to pay with pocket change, and he wants to get like the nicest seat, but he can't afford it, and there's a dress code, and ultimately he can't afford any of the tickets, so they sell out or something of like the lower tickets. I forget which, but
in the gallery for the poor folk, I guess they sell out.
Yeah. But he sneaks her in to like the basement or whatever to hear some of it, and they kind of are playing around where, you know, she's kind of mouthing the words along to the lady's part, and he's kind of mouthing the words to the man's part, and they're kind of playing around in the costume. So I thought that was after their whole like playful thing with the telling stories about Stellador and all that. So
well, and I think it was really nice that scene in particular, because he started to, you know, he was very embarrassed, like, yeah, and it even brought him back to the fact of he started he blamed himself for not being able to pay for a doctor for his mom, and that's why his mom died. And like, she was able to bring him out of that and be that playful little thing that he needed to just break out of his shell and enjoy himself.
Yeah. And, you know, they have their breakup, but then they, like we said, and that's what sets him off to get on the bus, or well, not get on the bus, but get drunk. And then it sets him off to, you know, go yell his made up languages. But, you know, they reconcile before he ships off to war. You know, and she kind of has a conversation before he's like actually shipping off that she says, you know, I'm not getting married again anymore. And then they're kind of just chatting and talking as he's about to ship off. But of course they have the dramatic run back and share the final kiss before going. But, and yeah, at the end, she, like you said, she's pushing him to figure out the writing thing. And this is something I'm remembering, and I don't know this. I can't remember which biography it was, but in like, if I might have this paper buried somewhere, and if I can, I'll try to find it. But I had like a book report on a Tolkien biography in like 9th grade or something, and I remember very distinctly there was something about how he would write, you know, stories or write early drafts while she played piano, and like very much was like a co-creator of the Legendarium through her, you know, not only her influence with that, but just like being an influence on him. So
that's very interesting if true, because music is at the heart of the creation of Arda at the beginning of the Silmarillion.
Yes. Yeah. Not only that, but he probably, you know, took the tunes and put words to the tunes she was creating.
Yeah.
And that's how we get wonderful songs that are played over and over again.
Hey, Dole, Mary Dole. Yeah, as we kind of wrap up, I mean, like I said, overall, I thought it was a pretty good movie. You know, of course, dramatized, but I don't think anyone watching is going to assume. You know, hopefully, you're not assuming that it's a exact one for one, replica of what actually happened. But any kind of
no, Jeff, they used the chronovisor to see all of this stuff, and
the chronovisor was debunked in Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. Just putting that out there.
Time travel. Goes. But yeah, any final thoughts on the movie?
One thing I thought was really interesting, that when he was trying to talk with Professor White about, accepting him in for the scholarship, that a professor tells him he doesn't need to translate for Tolkien what his last name means, and Tolkien's like, yes, foolhardy. Like, his name means foolhardy, and this is kind of how he's been acting in a sense. But I think it shows his invented language using Edith's influence of what language is for. Like, she really instilled in him, it's not just something beautiful, but it has a meaning to it. She talks about a hand. Hand is it could be a beautiful word, but what it means is something greater.
Oh yeah, I wrote that down. She says, things aren't beautiful because of how they sound, but because of what they mean.
Yeah. Yep. And so then he's given a 5,000 word paper on Norse influence in Gawain.
Tonight.
Yeah. I would totally freeze up and not be able to do it. I tried doing all-nighters to write papers. My brain did not work that way.
Ironically, I only did that once, and the paper was on sleep deprivation, and I got sleep deprived because I had to write a paper on sleep deprivation.
There you go. Yeah, I did that a couple times myself, being a history major and having to write a lot of papers. So
yeah.
All right. And then I think, Rob, you put this on here, but we've talked about this before. And if y'all want to hear kind of a podcast on Tolkien's faith, you can look back in the feed a couple years at this point. I think it was beginning of 2023. We did a whole episode on Tolkien's faith.
Yeah.
But there is a biography.
Yes,
of Tolkien from the Catholic perspective. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and we've talked about it before, but it's Tolkien's Faith by Dr. Holly Ordway. So
yep, really good. Out. Fills in a lot of the gap. Like, if you've seen this movie and you're interested and you want to get more of like his faith life and how, like, there were even times, like, he admitted as a young man, like, there were times when he basically stopped practicing for a while, so it wasn't just this, like, straight line of, like, always being the saintly person.
Good Catholic boy.
Right, yeah. It's right. Like, he's very human, he's very real, and if you want to get more about that, can't recommend Tolkien's Faith enough. It's kind of a door stopper. It's big, but it's really, really...
We're just waiting for the cause of canonization to open at this point, right?
Right, yeah. Well, it's been open. Put out there. It's been put out there, right? Okay. Yeah. At least they floated his name around.
I know they did that with Chesterton, but they that quickly got shut down.
Okay. So Google is telling me while there's not an active canonization process, I thought I'd seen that it was at least like open, but maybe I could be mistaken on that. I know his. Yeah, I don't remember offhand. Honestly, I thought it had been, but I mean, no progress has been made, so I don't believe so.
Yeah. No, those take a lot of money and a lot of, I mean, not that the Tolkien estate doesn't have money at this point with all the movies, but it takes a lot of money in the right direction with people of certain sorts to go do that. But I guess
some people get stuck as servant of God for like forever, like.
Okay,
or some people that were supposed to be beatified. Oh no, we're going to delay that beatification and determine indefinitely now.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this in that Tolkien's Faith episode, but I did find on September 2nd of 2017, the first mass for the cause of canonization for Tolkien was offered at St. Aloysius Oratory in Oxford. So
that's awesome.
I don't know how that means as far as like, what I don't know all the steps of opening a cause and going through all that, but at least the first mass was said,
Canon lawyers, let us know what is the process.
We know you're listening, canon lawyers.
Yeah.
Well, Father Andrew Kinstetter is a canon lawyer. Maybe he's listening. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, unless you'll have any other thoughts on this, I think that will do it for this episode of The Secrets of Middle-earth. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons who make this show possible. Their generous donations help us to continue to create The Secrets of Middle-earth and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them at sqpn.com/give. Now we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. What do you think about the Tolkien biopic? You can let us know on our Facebook page or on Twitter, or by sending an email to middleearth@sqpn.com, by leaving us a comment on YouTube or on Spotify, or by visiting our channel on the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. So join us next time for another episode discussing Middle-earth. And until then, thank you, Thomas Salerno, for joining me and sharing the secrets of Middle-earth.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
And thank you, Rob Leonardi.
Thank you for having me. Helheim.
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 You stole my line. But it's okay. We're part of the SOME Society together. So, all right. And I'm Jeff Haecker. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Doctor Who. Find the show wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Doctor Who.